they told us the risk could lose the baby. And I was like, well, why would anyone risk that? And she's like, well, for some people, they may get information from that test that let them know that they don't want to proceed with the pregnancy. And I remember I had this visceral reaction in that moment. I was like, do you think that I would give up this child? Like, I have wanted to be a dad for so long. And in my mind, I was like, you could have told me my daughter was going to be born with like 7 arms. I don't care. Like, her story wants to be in this world and needs to be in this world. And I will do a single thing that will risk her not having the opportunity to tell her story. But I also felt this like deep empathy for other parents who have sat in that room, maybe don't have a great support system or are financially strapped, or they just don't feel like mentally or emotionally they can do it. And now she's 7.5 years old. I just want every parent to know that you can do this.
Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, the place where high-performing men are empowered to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness while enhancing their career success. You see, in a world full of noise, burnout, and mediocrity, we believe what's missing is courageous and compassionate leadership in the home, because when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. You see, this isn't just a podcast. It's a movement for men who refuse to settle for less in their families, in their focus, and their future. We are curse breakers and we are legacy makers. I am your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm honored that you've chosen to invest your most valuable asset, which is your time, with me today. Now let's get into it. All right, my friends, I hope you are as excited about this show as I am, because we have Danny Jordan on this podcast today. And we've already been talking too much as it is. We're clearly designed to be BFFs, but I want you to read a little bit or hear a little bit about who he is, because he's got a pretty impressive bio. He's an award-winning author, a TV producer, and a motivational speaker. And the thing is with Danny, when his daughter was born, she was born with an upper limb difference in 2018. And so he became an advocate for inclusion and accurate representation of disability in the media. Danny's premier book, Ray's First Day, which is the first story in the whole Capable series, the book series, it received the Kirkus Star, the IBPA Benjamin Franklin Award, and was named one of the best books of 2021 by Kirkus Reviews magazine. He has since gone on to publish the second book in the Capable series, Lex Leads the Way. And this journey has inspired the founding of the Capable Foundation, which is a nonprofit dedicated to celebrating difference and promoting inclusion. And outside of his literary adventures, Danny has produced and directed over 250 hours of primetime major network and cable television programming for shows like The Biggest Loser, I've watched it, Extreme Makeover Home Edition, I've watched it, Master Chef, watched it, and Storage Wars and more. So, but here's the thing about Danny, along with all of that, he also co-hosts the #1 Christmas podcast in the world, which is super rad, called The Christmas Countdown. And so he was also recently on the producing team for How to Dance in Ohio, which is an award-winning new Broadway musical about and starring individuals with autism. So that was a huge bio, a lot to communicate there, but it was all incredible stuff, which hopefully after hearing that, my friends, you are as excited as I am to have this conversation with Danny. So listen, Danny, thank you for joining us today on the Dad Nation podcast. So welcome back to part 2 of this episode with Danny Jordan. And listen, before you even start, if you haven't heard part 1 last week, I want you to pause this and I want you to go back to part 1, because we did some incredible work understanding why we struggle with the things we struggle with sometimes as men, and how our childhood shapes many things in our parenting journey and in marriage. And it was a powerful conversation about resilience, about what happens when a boy becomes a man, and the shift in his perspective, and how our childhood impacts our fatherhood, and powerful conversation. So go back, listen to that, and then come back and visit us here at part 2. But the last question we were talking about on part 1 was just this question about, like, what was that like, that season when finding out, your daughter was diagnosed with upper limb difference, and what was it like emotionally for you and your wife? And I thought that was such a great answer. But then after we finished recording, I was talking to my wife, and she's a healthcare professional. A lot of you listeners would know this. She works at a children's hospital. She's a respiratory therapist. So she's up and close with all of these challenges and works obviously exclusively with children. And she was saying, as I was sort of debriefing this conversation with Danny, she was saying, Mitchell, you have no idea how hard these things are on couples. She said, I see it all the time, whether it's a health diagnosis or the child passes away or any kind of, adversity in this kind of capacity. She said, absolutely destroys couples. And the divorce rate is very high for couples with children who have different complications like this all over the realm. So, which, sparked a really interesting conversation. And I thought, man, I'm going to ask you this, Danny, when we start the second part of the episode, because I'd be so curious to hear from you. What was that season like for you and your wife? What challenges came up through that? And then how did you overcome those challenges?
That's a great question. And I love that you were chatting with your wife about this, because I think the nurses, they have the front row seat, to what we are navigating. And first, I want to say thank you to all of the healthcare professionals that are there as you're navigating, whether it's something you find out at birth or in our case, something when, my wife was about 20 weeks pregnant. And I think for us, and I can't remember if we chatted about this last time, but I think my wife and I, we were uniquely prepared to sort of navigate this news because we had gone through a really difficult situation a few months prior with our niece, who was born on New Year's Day and unfortunately about 8 days later passed away. And my wife and I had gone out to London for the birth of our niece, and it was an undiagnosed heart condition and all these things. I think we may have chatted about that last time. And so we'd been in these rooms that nobody should ever have to be in their lives, and you're just seeing indescribable pain and grief and all these things. And so I think because we had been through it, our reaction initially was to just face it head on, to not run away from it. It's an interesting thing, when you find out, and I'm so glad you're asking this question, because there's just things that happen that like nothing in life can prepare you for. Yeah. But after we met with the specialist, they immediately sent us down the hallway to meet with a genetic counselor. And because this was so new, I didn't really know why. I'd never been to therapy like before all of this. So like talking through like emotions with a professional was not something I was used to. And I just remember sitting in that room and, she was like, well, how are you feeling? And I think for us, it was like, we just wanted to learn. We wanted to educate ourselves. I'm a fixer, I wanted to like fix myself, I think, and try to fix the world and all these things. And I remember sitting in that room, and it sticks with me to this day, because I know a lot of other parents have sat in that space and may have to sit in that space in the future. And I remember her, letting us know what our options were at that point in time. They offered us, to do an amniocentesis to see like if there was anything else going on. But because my wife was so far along in the pregnancy at that time, they told us the risks would be like it could, start a false labor essentially, and you could lose the baby. And I was like, well, why would anyone risk that? And she's like, well, for some people, they may get information from that test that lets them know that they don't want to proceed with the pregnancy any longer. And I remember I had this visceral reaction in that moment. I was like, do you think that I would give up this child? Like, I have wanted to be a dad for so long. And in my mind, I was like, you could have told me my daughter was going to be born with like 7 arms. I don't care. Like, her story wants to be in this world and needs to be in this world. And I won't do a single thing that will risk her not having the opportunity to tell her story in this world. But I also felt this like deep empathy for other parents who have sat in that room and maybe hadn't gone through what we'd gone through a few months earlier that had sort of prepared us for this, or maybe don't have a great support system, or are financially strapped or they just don't feel like mentally or emotionally they can do it. And all I wanted to do in that moment was to talk to every single one of them. And now that like Emerson is here and she's 7.5 years old and we're on the backside of so much of it, I just want every parent to know that like you can do this. It is not going to be easy. There are going to be so many challenges along the way, but like you are capable of doing hard things. And, what's interesting about our journey, and this is, I know, sort of a long-winded answer, but like, I think a lot of the emotion of it all didn't hit us, my wife and myself, and our marriage in particular, until way after the fact. I think we were so focused on like, we got to prepare ourselves. We got to prepare the world, like we're both type A personalities. Let's get to work. And it wasn't until Emerson was about 2, I would say, and the pandemic started. And we were just in the same space with each other a lot. And I think we started to see the way that each other sort of reacted to certain things that was happening with Emerson and her development. And her learning to walk was one of the most stressful experiences of my life, that I've ever been through. I was thinking about this morning. So I saw a photo of her where she had this like big goose egg on her head. And, when Emmy was learning to walk, most kids, when they fall, they catch themselves, right? My daughter can't extend her right arm. So every time she would trip and fall when she was learning to walk, she would catch herself with her left, and then she would just smash the right side of her forehead every single time, in our house, out at the park, wherever, whatever it was. And it was the hardest thing to go through because nobody wants to see their child suffer. But I had to allow her to fall and hurt herself every single time so she could learn how to catch herself. So that way she didn't smash her head. And, my wife is like a big personality. And when these things would happen, whenever Emmy would fall, she would do this big gasp all the time. And it started like triggering like my fight or flight response in me. And so during the pandemic, when we were around each other all the time, I think we both started to realize how we react to moments like that. And it really tested our marriage in a lot of ways. And frankly speaking, like, I think we avoided it for a long time. My wife comes from a family that doesn't really talk about things. I come from a family that talks a lot. Which could be really hard. But also like I had this sense, and maybe other dads out there can relate to this. Maybe you can relate to this, Mitch, is like when my daughter was born, my wife's a hairdresser. So she went back to work pretty quickly, and we had a nanny that was here during the week. So like I couldn't do any overnight feedings because we had to save all of the milk that was in the freezer for the nanny. And so I felt this huge sense of guilt for the longest time that my wife was doing everything, getting up in the middle of the night, doing all the feedings. And like, I'm like, what am I just going to do? Wake up and just stare? Like I should rest. And so I felt a lot of guilt. And so I think as the emotions, to sort of bring this full circle, started to well up, and I realized we weren't talking about things, I knew it was seated in the fact that I felt like I had no ground to stand on because she had sacrificed so much through IVF and pregnancy and the overnight feedings and all these things that like I buried it for so long that when it finally came to a head, it really tested our marriage. And we went to therapy and, are still working through it to this day. Cause like there are no blueprints for these things, but it's like, my buddy said to me a while back, he goes, marriage is an interesting thing. He goes, cause it's kind of like going to war. You got to just decide like, this is the person I'm going to be in the bunker with. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be really, really hard, and it's going to be terrifying. But like, I'm choosing you to be side by side with me as we go to battle. And you have to make that choice every day. And it's one that we continue to make to this day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful. And Danny, I just want to affirm you in some of those challenges because, and a lot of the longtime listeners of my show will have heard me talk about this, but this idea that men struggle communicating their emotions is not new, but it has been, there's actually a term coined by psychologists for this, and it's called normative male alexithymia. It's a bit of a mouthful, but if you break down the word alexithymia from the Greek, it's alexis thymos, which defined means to be without words for emotion. So if you put the whole phrase together, normative male alexithymia, it means it is normal for a male to be without words for his emotions. this is both nature and nurture. It's just, so if you're listening to this show right now and you can connect with what Danny just said, or you can connect with what I just said, understand you're not broken. You share the same challenge as what billions of other men have faced before you. And that's just part of the male expression. Now, I say this often, but your wiring may excuse you, or it may explain you, but it doesn't excuse you, right? We live in a world where we have tools, we have resources, where we can learn and grow in our ability to understand our emotions, and then to communicate our emotions, and then to communicate, and then also be able to hold space for our wives' emotions, because this is the biggest point of tension in marriage today. We know 80% of all divorces in the U.S., the main reason that women leave is some variation of emotional disconnection. I didn't feel like my feelings mattered. He didn't talk about how he felt. I don't feel connected to him emotionally. It's all they're wrapped in slightly different bows, but it's always the same reason. I feel like I married a robot. And so what you experience is very common. And real quick, I'll just pause to say, I actually recently created a tool exactly for this. It's called the Open Method, and it's 4-step, OPEN. It's a 5-minute system or an exercise you can go through to help you stop shutting down and say what needs to be said, right? Because so many of us as men, we just like swallow it, say, oh, happy wife, happy life, or we'll just bury it, and we die, we fall on the sword, and we think it's, there's this nobility to martyrdom for our family. And in some senses, yes, it's important to sacrifice things for our families. Yes, that's very masculine, but not at the cost of our marriage, not at the cost of the health of our family. And so if that resonates with you, go to dadnationcode.com/open, and you can download that tool for free. Promise it will help you in a significant way.
That's awesome, man. No, we need that, right? Like 100%, and it's hard, especially like if you are a very open person. Like I came from a family that like talked a lot, and you sort of know where you stand emotionally. And then, to feel this pressure to like make sure that your wife feels supported, but then like you're not your best self. It's a tough road to navigate. So tools like that are vital, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. But kudos to you, man, for you guys for going to war, sharing a bunker, staying together, and continuing to work on it, man. It's huge.
It's hard, and it's taken a lot of conversations, a lot of uncomfortable conversations, and I also know what I think what happened to me, and maybe some other, fellas out there can relate to this, is that I saw that like I wasn't getting anything in response, when I would talk to my wife. And so I just stopped talking, but that wasn't serving anybody at all. Primarily, it wasn't serving me because I wasn't being who I was. And the way I process is like, I have a thought, I say it out loud, I now hear what I'm saying, and I go, do I agree with that? Do I not agree with that? And it helps me to sort of work through things. It's like journaling out loud, essentially. And so I wasn't processing any of my emotions, which was making me not a great person. It was making me not a great husband, but also like in any marriage, there are going to be strengths that each person brings to the equation, right? And one of the strengths that I bring is that I encourage my wife and I to talk. So I wasn't giving her the best of myself. I was falling short, not just for myself, but her as well. And as a result, our marriage was struggling. Yeah. That's just not how my wife communicates. And that's just who she is. And that's totally fine. But that is how I communicate. And for us to function authentically, for any marriage to function authentically, like you both need to show up and sort of show out with your best selves all the time. And that was a hard lesson to learn, because for a long time I was like, well, if you're not going to talk, then I'm not going to talk, and pride gets in the way and ego. And you're like, well, this just makes me feel worse. Why am I continuing to torture myself? And you can go through that cycle of like, well, it's because it's like, no, you'll never be able to control what anybody else does. You can only take ownership of what you do or don't do. And so I didn't like who I was becoming. And it's easy to say, well, it's because of that person. No. You make the decision. Everything that happens in life, we tell our kids this all the time. Cause and effect, right? Every decision you do or don't make has an effect, and only you control what you decide. And that's been a huge thing for me. And as I've just decided to be that, our marriage has gotten a lot better and a lot healthier. And there's a lot more connection as a result of it.
Yes. Hey, brother, let me ask you something. And I want you to really think about this. Are you winning at work, but quietly kind of losing ground at home? Maybe you're the guy people rely on. You stay calm in meetings. You carry that pressure all day. And you kind of wear that like a badge of honor. But maybe when you walk through the front door at home, your wife feels distant. Conversations feel shorter. And instead of being excited to come home, maybe work feels easier. Nothing is broken, but something is slowly drifting. And if you're telling yourself right now, I'm going to fix this when things slow down, or I'm going to fix this when things get easier, if you're honest with yourself, you already know they won't slow down. They won't get easier. Well, the high performance husband is for men who are done coasting. It's for men who want to win at home like they win at work. You see, this isn't therapy. It's not about fixing your wife. It's not for men who want quick hacks. It's for men who want to be calm under pressure, strong in their body, clear in their thinking, and to become the man that your wife and kids look up to with pride. So if you're listening to this and you know that what got you here won't get you where you want to go, I want you to go to dadnationco.com/accelerator or click the link in the show notes below, and then you can apply to join this accelerator and join myself and many other like-minded men who are leveling up in their home, in their health, and their happiness. They're winning all year long. It's a 12-month mentorship. It's going to change your life. All right, now let's jump back into the episode. You know, Danny, it's so funny you mentioned, and I love that you mentioned that about you having to sort of learn how to communicate what you needed or what you desired in your marriage, because I find that this is one of the biggest challenges that I experience with clients that come to me. And so much so that I actually recorded an episode strictly on it, was as the date of this airing, it would have been 2 episodes ago, before our part 1 conversation. And it was around this question of like, what are you tolerating? You know, because as men, that's the raw truth, is you get what you tolerate, right? Like if you tolerate disrespect from your children, you're going to get more of it. If you tolerate clients pushing you around and running your schedule, you're going to get more of it. If you tolerate, you know, an unhealthy marriage and not communicating well, you're just going to get more of it. That's just kind of the way it works. And I think men fall into this trap of saying, well, happy wife, happy life. You know, and I hate that phrase, because you know where that leads us? Bitterness and resentment, because you're not communicating your deepest desires and the things that you crave the most. And so we think as men that it's noble to die to our needs and fall on the sword. And sometimes it is, for sure. There's a lot of sacrifice in fatherhood and husbandship, but not at the cost of the health of your relationship and family. And so I think that's such a critical lesson that you learn, and so important for us all to hear, and to also just have an open conversation about of like, what does healthy communication look like in your marriage, specifically when you face adversity? What is your system or your funnel for having healthy conversation so that you are both, you know, communicating well? So I don't say happy wife, happy life. I say happy spouse, happy house, right? Yeah. And if you can both look at one another with that attitude of, hey, how can I serve you? How can I help meet your needs? Man, things change pretty quick.
100%. And I think what you hit at the end is imperative, right? Like for me, I needed to talk about those things, and I control that. But also it is my responsibility as the partner of my wife to learn what works for her when it comes to communicating.
Yes.
Is it a setting? Is it a time of day? Is it the language that I'm using? I don't just have a green light to come in and just be like, well, here's all the 17 things that pissed me off that you did today. And, you know, I'm just living my truth and I'm being authentic and I'm just telling you what I'm going through. You know, like you come in like a wrecking ball like that, just like you said, like you're going to get what you put out, you know, and you're going to welcome. If you come in offensive, you're going to get offense right back. But if you come with care and kindness and really a heart of, I want our relationship, because, you know, with what we navigated with Emerson, and now that we have 2 children and just, you know, life in general, is I say to my wife all the time, like, it started with us. Yeah. Before any of this, it was us. And so what we have to take care of first and foremost is us. Mm-hmm. And for me individually, it means that I have to pay attention to what works for my wife and what doesn't. Yes, I have to be authentic, but I also have to be smart and wise and caring and considerate about how I share those things. And that takes a lot of work, and that takes a lot of paying attention. And I know we live in a time where like there's a lot of stuff pulling at our attention, and it's easy to just want to plow through things and not be patient with someone. But I can promise you, from having navigated it, if you are not patient and you are not considerate, it will never go well.
Yeah,
Ever.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's here we are going on a tangent, but it's so good.
I know.
It's so good, like, because and the thing is like there's simple tools like, you know, love languages, understanding how your wife receives love, right? My wife is quality time, and she's physical touch, and so that's not my love language. My love languages are acts of service and words of affirmation. So naturally, I would do things for her and compliment her. It's actually not how she doesn't really value that. She wants me to give her my eyes, quality time, not just time, but quality time, and to touch her, right? And so if I want to love her and make deposits into our relationship, that's how I ought to do it. Or understanding your attachment styles. I mean, and so guys, if you know, listen to this show right now, I've done episodes on all these different things. But if your wife has an avoidant attachment style, that means that when conflict comes, right, or when you have potential conflict is boiling up, she leans away, right? If you have an anxious attachment style, you lean in. And so you've got this, if you have a difference in attachment styles, then conflict can be even more challenging, because you got one who's trying to lean away because that's what they need to do to get space, but the other one's leaning in, because they're looking for that connection, but they're actually moving in the opposite direction. And so understanding your attachment styles, like, so there's all these like little tools that you can use to bring together so that you can communicate through these things to really help you, you know, face the storm, you know, and live in that bunker. So
yeah,
love
Mitch,
that stuff.
you've brought it full circle to your first question that I think you asked me 25 minutes ago. We finally come back around, because the hardest part of our marriage for those 3 years after Emerson was born was my wife was exactly what you described. She pulled away. She was constantly pulling away, and I was constantly trying to lean in. And it created this huge disconnect. And what I had to understand was that, like, her pulling away had nothing to do with me whatsoever. She was processing becoming a mother for the first time. She was processing, you know, the fact that her child is living with a disability, and how does that make her feel, and all these sorts of things. She carried the child for 4.5 months after we found out this diagnosis. I didn't.
Yeah.
I was, you know, I was still going about my life thinking about Emerson, but that human was growing inside of her. And I think inevitably, and this is something we can never understand as men, is like that affects a person chemically, emotionally, and there is no timeline for how that person processes and comes back from that experience. But you made a promise to that person to be there with them through sickness and in health. And that is a very broad definition. And so for me, I think a promise is the ultimate communication of like who you are as a human being and representation of what you stand for. And so it's not going to be easy. It was not easy for us, but it does not mean that it's impossible.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. You know, I come from Christian circle. I've been in church for a lot of my life. I've been a pastor for many years, and we use the word in Christian circles. We use the word covenant. You know, and the word covenant is so much deeper than the word promise. You know, and as Christians, we believe when we get into like a Christian marriage, we don't just make a promise to one another, but we actually make a covenant with God, you know, before God and our friends and our family, which is significant, you know, making a covenant with who you believe to be the creator of the heavens and the earth. Like that's weighty. So when things get hard, you're like, we're going to figure this out, you know? So
dude, that's so powerful what you just said. And I know we're supposed to talk about my daughter, but like, I feel called in this moment to talk about the marriage end of things. Is like, because we live in this time where everything is so transient and everything's changing all the time. Like when you make a covenant or promise, whatever word resonates with you, it is a recognition of everything that has happened in your life, whether you believe in God, universe, whatever it is, that brought you and this person together in this moment. And you're saying thank you. Thank you for every little decision, big moment, red light, green light that has led me to this person. And to break that covenant in a way is to basically blow up your entire life that led you to this very incredible moment to meet this person who you had this very real connection with, that you loved so much and were so interested in that you wanted to promise your life to them. So, and I think we forget about all of that when we're stressed out.
Oh yeah.
Or when a couple things go wrong, or there's a couple things that piss us off and they've been going on for a year or two. What about the 7-8 years of you forming this relationship? What about your entire life that led you to that moment? And when you met that person, you go, gosh, this is what it's all been for.
Yeah.
Don't lose sight of that promise, that covenant, the recognition of everything that led you to that person.
Yeah, that's so good. I often say, you know, when people talk to me about my wife and my son, and second one coming, but his name is Jet, my son, and I'll say to people, you know what? Without my wife, there is no Jet. Without my wife, there is no second baby coming. She's the most important thing to me, because our entire family began with her.
Yeah.
And me, right? And so that's where it begins. And so that's, dude, we're so in alignment on that. It's, I think it's so important to remember. One of my most popular Instagram posts to date is a quote card, and it said something very, very simple. Fathers, or I said husbands, your wife is your teammate, not your opponent.
Yes.
You do not win a war by bombing your own team. Right?
100%.
And going back to your analogy of war, right? It's just like you don't do that, right? Like, and so the focus is you are teammates. You are in this battle on the same side, right? Don't let's not have any friendly fires. That's not helping anyone win a war. So
agreed.
Love it. Can we talk about the things that we plan to talk about today?
Yeah, I was going to say, I promise to not interject anything off topic. I'm known for tangents and rabbit holes.
Dude, it's so good, man. It's so good. Don't apologize. Let's talk about other couples, because we talked about you and your wife and the challenges you face. No doubt you've experienced a lot of, you know, other couples in your life, or things you observe about other couples who maybe are not in the same position as you, with children who have a disability. What are some of the challenges that you think people don't see when parenting a child with disabilities?
Oh man, there are a lot. I'd say the hardest ones in the beginning were when we started taking Emerson out to public places, and you start noticing the world noticing her. That's hard, because all you want to do, because I could see it, like whether we're at Disneyland, the park, the grocery store, whatever. I could clock that moment when an adult or a child saw my daughter and noticed that her right arm looked different. And they tug on the shirt, they start asking questions, the parent looks over, and you have no idea what the narrative is that's being shared with that child. And so for me, as this fierce advocate for my daughter and anyone living with a disability, it's like I want to talk to every single one of those people. I want to answer the questions they may have. I don't want this old tired narrative that we grew up with, like, don't ask questions, don't stare, all these sorts of things that just reinforces for a kid that, like, oh, maybe this is something bad. Maybe this is something weird. Maybe I should be scared of it because mommy and daddy, grandma, grandpa, whomever, they can't even talk about it, you know? And so because you notice these people, you know that it's happening all around the world. And so I wore that weight for a long time, and I carried that weight, I think, with our book series of, like, I have to make this work. I have to sell millions of copies of our books. I have to turn this into an animated series so we can educate as many people as possible as to what it's like to grow up with this disability in particular, but also just to drive home this narrative that, like, different is normal and different is okay and different is super. Like that was my mission. As you get older, as your child gets older, those challenges are still there. But the biggest one, or one of the biggest ones, is when your child says things to you like my daughter has said to me, like, I wish I had 5 fingers on my right hand. That's hard. I wish I didn't have a disability. Things would be a lot easier for me. And there is no script for these sorts of moments. And some of it is like them thinking of it. Some of it is, experiences they've had. Like my daughter had an experience when she was in preschool where she was in a disagreement with another kid about riding a scooter. And the kid said, well, you can't ride this scooter. You're broken, And like you hear about that as a parent, you're like, well, who is this kid? Like you want to jump in. Like, I want to talk to him. I want to talk to his parents. Not aggressively, but like, I just, well, part of it's aggressive, but like, you also just want to like help them to get it,
Yeah.
And then when it's your child sharing these things with you and saying these statements, you just have to like show up and do your best. And I think the biggest thing that I've committed to is that I never want to in any way sort of diminish or gloss over what Emerson has said to me. I don't want to, I want to honor it. If she says, man, this would be easier if I had 5 fingers. I want to say, baby, I'll never understand what it's like for you to navigate this world in the way that your body was made. And I'm sure for you, it does feel like it would be easier. And there are certain things that, yes, would be easier for you. We can't change that. So what can we do to help you try this thing that is difficult for you? Can we try it differently? Can I maybe get you into an adaptive sports class so you can try this out in a safe environment where there are people who have navigated a similar road to you and can maybe have the words that I don't have because I haven't lived that story. And so I know my number one objective, and I think the number one responsibility for me is that, and I think I said this in part 1, is that I need to provide a space, a feeling that Emerson knows that when she's at home, when she's around us, that she's safe. That's the place she can say those things. That's the place she can express them, knowing that like we're not always going to come back to her with some sort of, epiphany, sort of like, monumental statement, but that she can just say it and she can get it out of her head and she can express it and she can move on with her life. Yes, we are here to empower her. And yes, we are going to honor her and we're going to champion her and cheer her on in every way we possibly can. But also like, we're just going to be here to listen as well. And I think that's the best thing. I listened to Dan Patrick's sports talk show. I don't know if you listen to the Dan Patrick show, but he has daughters and he had said the other day, and I was like, gosh, this is so great. He goes, lecture less, listen more. And I was like, yes, like that is something that applies to like all parents, whether you have a child with a disability or not. It's like, just listen to what they're saying and don't always feel like you have to have those words that are going to make everything okay.
Yeah.
As long as you're there and you're present, I think they're going to be good.
Yeah. My grandma used to say, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you speak. Which I was like,
right.
That's brilliant.
100%. And it's hard, right?
Yeah.
And I try to catch myself as much as I possibly can. And it's like when you hear your child say things like that, it stops you in your tracks. And it's any parents, the last thing you ever want to hear your kids say is like, I don't want to be who I am.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, it's like I get those moments, when I go do school readings and Emerson, will say, Daddy, make sure they know that I'm Ray. Like she's really proud that like there is this superhero character that looks like her. She has a poster of Ray on the back of her bedroom door. Recently she's been listening to like the audiobook version of Ray on her Tony box before she goes to sleep at night. And now she's like, I wish I had Ray's superpower. Like that's what she said to me recently. So it wasn't like, I don't want to be this, or I wish I had 5 fingers. She's like, I wish I had Ray's superpower. And what's really cool is that, Ray's power is that she's able to harness the power of light. And I told her, I go, well, baby, you actually do have Ray's superpower. I said, Ray's superpower is a metaphor that we all can help, that when we are kind, that when we're helpful, when we share, we're shining our light in the world and we are helping others through it.
I love that.
Dude,
that's powerful, man. We talked a little bit about, your marriage, and then we talked about, observing what you wish other people would know. And, we talked a lot about the challenges. We talked a lot about the adversity, but I'm curious to know, man, because I know a lot of my friends who have children with different disabilities. They are quick to tell me about all that they've taught them about joy, about resilience, about courage. What are some things that she has taught you? Some of those light moments what has she taught you about that?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? I mean,
you got 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. I know. You should set a timer for me with every one of your questions. That would be smart for me. No, I think Emerson has taught me resilience, has taught me strength, has taught me the power that resides when you embrace yourself exactly the way that you were made. Emerson has taught me so much about kindness and caring. My daughter in her class, and she had this last year in kindergarten, she has a full inclusion student who has an aide there with her or with him every single day. And they became good friends last year. And like, she literally will wait at the front of the school every single day for this kid to arrive and waits for him to arrive and walks in with him and his aide every single day. And his parents, have both individually pulled me aside, and they're navigating a road similar to ours, but different, right? Like their child's disability is developmental. And they have expressed to me, they're like, we are so grateful for Emerson. Like the way that she embraces our child and gives him a place that he feels safe and that he feels seen, and she plays with him and she's silly with him. You start to realize like how every parent has like the same fears. Every parent, whether your child has a disability or not, just wants their kid to feel like they belong and that they're enough and that they're safe. And friendship provides that. Emerson doesn't judge. Emerson welcomes every single person in with kindness and an open heart and care. She's so empathetic, and she could feel the emotions of anyone at any given moment. And she doesn't run away from it. And it's helped me a lot because I know like her and I are so similar in the fact that like we can hear music and we just like start crying like for no, and like I'll look at her and she goes, can you just please change the song, Dad? And I go, is it making you feel a lot? She goes, yeah. But Emerson has taught or helped me to relearn how important it is to embrace that aspect of yourself. Because it is a gift to the world to be able to feel others and what they're going through and to help them put words to maybe something they don't know how to describe. To be a smiling face in a space where a kid or their parents might be terrified of what's going to happen to their child. Emerson is one of the most kind people I've ever met. And she's helped me to remember how important kindness is.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. And I just want to say thank you for just being so willing to go there, and
yeah,
to sort of share from your heart. It's clear that you are absolutely in love with your child and are completely inspired by her. And dude, it's so powerful. And so I appreciate your candor, your vulnerability, man. It's beautiful. So
of course. Yeah. I mean, it's everything, right? Like every parent out there, like I was thinking about this last night. If you pray or meditate or whatever it is you sort of do, you find yourself praying for things and you go, wait a second. I already have that thing.
Yeah.
Like, why am I praying for something I should be giving thanks for? I was like praying for more time with my kids as I was laying in bed with my child. Like,
yeah,
what a gift, right? Like if we would just take a moment to stop being in want all the time. Stop chasing, start embracing. As I shared in the last episode, you're like, my prayers have already been answered.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful gift. And like, I want to shout it from the mountaintops every single day. It's that same covenant that you talked about with marriage. Like God trusted you with these children. And the greatest way you can honor that gift is by being present with it and letting that child know every single day how much you love them, how much they mean to you.
It's beautiful. So you track your numbers in business, your revenue, your performance, KPIs. and you know exactly where you stand. But let me ask you this. Do you know the score in your marriage, or are you just hoping it's fine? Because you know what? Most men have no idea. They don't check until something breaks, until the distance is obvious, until the tension turns into silence, until the word separation enters the conversation. And by then, they're playing catch up. And that's exactly why I built the High Performance Husband Audit. It's a free 2-minute diagnostic designed specifically for driven men like you to give you a clear, honest read on where your marriage actually stands. No fluff, no therapy talk, just 10 strategic multiple choice questions, a clear category, and a proven system to help you fix what's off before it becomes something bigger. Because if you're disciplined enough to track your business, you should be disciplined enough to lead your home. So go to the link in the show notes and take the High Performance Husband Audit today. Get your score, get your plan, and start leading where it matters most. All right, let's get back to the episode. We're going to land the plane. I'm down to 3 questions. All right.
So we got another hour, something like that, probably.
We got another 2 episodes coming up, part 3, part 4. But I do want you to speak to the men who are listening who, man, maybe they are right now where you were when you first got that diagnosis, when your wife was 20 weeks pregnant, or maybe, they're brand new fathers, or maybe their kid is, 3-4 years old and they're still sort of grieving certain things, or, because there's going to be men who are in that situation. And over the coming years, as more and more men listen to this episode, you're going to be able to speak to them. So for those men who are listening, who might feel exhausted, who might feel overwhelmed, who might feel isolated, maybe even grieving the life that they thought their child would have. I mean, you talked about that in the first episode. Like, you wrote a narrative for her life, and you realized when she was born, well, you had to rewrite that narrative. Like, for the men who are in that situation, how would you encourage them today?
First, I would say exactly everything you're feeling is okay. If you're scared, that's okay. If you're hurting, that's okay. For the longest time, I think I was afraid to say out loud that I was scared of how Emerson's life would go, that I was fearful. Because I think in my mind, I thought, well, that is me saying that I'm disappointed in the fact that she was born with a disability, and that could not be further from the truth. So I think what's important to know is that fear, all those sorts of things, in no way are a reflection on your child and your love for them. So I think if you start there, that gives you a firm foundation to stand upon. I think it's also important to know that nobody is expecting you to have all the answers all the time. That's something we put upon ourselves. As a lot of times I think as men, like I shared earlier, you want to fix things, you want to make things better. Well, what if the situation doesn't actually need to be fixed? What if the situation is fine just the way it is? And your job is not to fix, but your job is to encourage. Your job is to support. Your job is to advocate. Your job is to provide. And I think of that word provide, it's so much bigger than just going to work and earning a paycheck. Your job is to provide a safe space for your children. And that's not just a home with 4 walls. That's a place for them to share their feelings, to know that no matter who I am in this moment, on this day, at this time, that I'm safe with Dad. Yeah. That's vital. Because I think we talked about this in the first part, is that when children fall off of a bike and you're there, the first person they look to is you. So you've got to be that stable presence. And a lot of times that requires cleaning house and doing work on yourself. And don't be afraid to talk. Talk to people. Yeah. Don't bury it inside. Because I think what you start to realize once you talk to people is that you're not alone. And that these fears, I said this to my daughter recently, because my daughter will get wrapped up in thought. She goes through these fear cycles in her head, right? And I said to her, I was like, why don't you say it out loud? And she goes, what will that do for me? I said, you're giving the thoughts somewhere else to go. Yes. Give your worries somewhere else to go. I said, if you let it out into the world, and this goes for everyone listening right now, your mind compared to the expanse of the universe, your head is really small. Why not give those ideas that feel so big in your head, those fears, those concerns, somewhere else to exist. And once you get them out into this big, wide world, they'll actually be a lot smaller than they feel like when they're in your head. So talk, know you're not alone, embrace your story, and know that to be fearful or to be scared in no way is a reflection upon your feelings about your kid in any way.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Thank you, man, for sharing that.
Of course.
You know, and this idea of darkness versus light, you know, inside versus outside, this is something men struggle with universally, you know, whether it's in their marriage or business struggles, you know, emotions, parenting. As long as it's stuck in your head, in the dark corners of your mind, it will have control over you, will have power over you, it will seem so big. The moment you take it out of the darkness and into the light, or into, you know, conversation with a trusted friend or a colleague or whatever, it loses its power.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It loses its power. So I'm a huge advocate for community. That's why I've created communities and I coach in communities, because men struggle so much in silence and they think, oh gosh, I'm the only one thinking this. Surely I'm the only one. Like I must be a monster, you know, but the moment you say it out and there's a group of men and they're like, oh yeah, I struggle with that too. I thought that same thing. Dude, 100%. It's like the weight of the world comes off your shoulders.
Do you ever get, I'm curious, like I ran into a guy I went to high school with the other day outside Starbucks, and he's a dad. And I haven't talked to this guy in 6 years, whatever it might be. And he said to me, he goes, dude, thank you so much for your videos that you talk about being a parent and a dad and all the things you're going through. He goes, I watch every single one of them. I haven't talked to this dude in 6 years. And I'm sure, I imagine you probably get this in the comments with your show a lot, of people who are like, thank you for putting words to this thing that I've been trying to describe. And I think maybe we take for granted sometimes, like we go, oh, everybody just must feel this way. And everybody must know how to say this thing. And that's just not the reality. And what you're doing is so great, because you're helping so many men put words to things that maybe they're not able to because of the way they were made or the way they were sort of raised to be. So this is really me just saying thank you to you for you doing what you do. Because it's so important, man.
Thank you, Danny. I mean, this episode is about you, but I appreciate it. Thank you for that encouragement. And to answer your question, yeah, I get it all the time. And I largely on Instagram, I base 90% of my content around that. Literally, I ask myself, what are the things that men think but are afraid to say out loud? What are the things, the challenges, the frustrations men have, but they just don't know how to say it? Whether because they don't have, we were talking about normative male alexithymia, or they don't feel safe, or whatever. They don't feel, if they say this out loud, they're going to feel weak and not masculine, or whatever. You know, it's nature and nurture. What can I say that can give men language for their feelings? You know, and that is the most common feedback I get every time. Is like, bro, I've been feeling that for like 6 months, and the words you use, just I couldn't find the words. And it's like, yes, I sent that to my wife, because it was like, yes, that's exactly how I feel, but I just didn't know how to say it. And so that's what I live for, man. So I'm glad that I'm glad it's resonating.
Yeah.
So good.
100%.
Okay. Second last question.
Okay.
So remind me, I know you have Emerson. How many, do you have other kids?
Yeah. So I have Emerson, she's 7.5 now. And then we had Riley. She's
Emerson
4.
and Riley.
Yeah.
Okay. I ask this question to a lot of my guests, not all of them, but when it feels right, I do. And I think I'd be really curious to hear what you say. And so I want you to just for a moment reflect with me. And this is a bit of a visualization exercise. I want you to picture that, you pass away, unfortunately, at some point, and the funeral is going on, and the memorial service is over. Perhaps they had some gathering at your home, and you now can be a bit of a fly on the wall, or have this out-of-body experience where you can hear and listen to the conversation around the table, where your wife and Emerson, and was it Riley? Riley. They're talking about you. They're talking about the life that you lived, the father that you were. What are some things that you would want your kids to say about the man that you were and the life that you lived?
I'll try to say this without getting super emotional again. I think the biggest thing is that dad was always there.
Mm.
Not just physically there, but like mentally, emotionally, dad was always there. And we could depend on him no matter what we needed, no matter what challenge we were navigating, no matter what heartache we were going through, no matter what victory we were celebrating. He was there. And that he never made it about him.
Mm.
That he always made sure to put us first. And I think a lot of that is rooted in like my childhood. You know, I get emotional thinking about it, right? Because like I just didn't feel that way with my dad, you know, a lot of the time. And I always promised growing up like I would never do that to my kids. And it's something that I think runs through my head every single time my kids ask me to do something. If I'm in the middle of a work day and they're like, Daddy, would you come play with us? You know, I think through all of those things. Like I want my kids to always know that they were the priority.
Yeah.
And that can show up in different ways. And I think the way we do that is by communicating with our kids. You know, like when work needs to be a priority, but work is a priority because it is the means to provide for your children. I think it's important that we educate them in those moments. And we don't just say, well, Daddy has to send this email right now. Tell your kid why you have to send that email. How does the world work? Why is working important? What does that mean to them? And how is that an expression of your love to them? It's not, this is taking me away from you and this is more important than you.
Yes.
It's like, you do Taekwondo, you love Taekwondo. Taekwondo, that costs money. And the way that I ensure that you get to do this thing you love so much is sometimes I have to work really hard. And sometimes I have to stay up late. And it's because I love you so much. But yeah, I think when it comes to when I'm not around anymore, you know, it's interesting because Riley and I say this thing to each other every night before she goes to sleep. I'm really huge on like creating unique connections with each of my kids. Like I've always said to Emerson, like dream big dreams every night before I say goodnight to her. And Riley's is I say, you keep me in your heart and I'll keep you in my heart and we'll be together forever. And that's it. I think to reside in somebody's heart is rooted in every way that you showed up for them. The hard times, the setting the boundaries when you needed to set the boundary, to being malleable when you needed to be malleable.
Yeah.
Because every moment calls for a different version of yourself. And so when I say he was always there, it means that you met them in a place where you allowed them to infiltrate every part of who you were. And through that, they felt safe enough to let you infiltrate their heart as well.
Gosh, Danny, I love that, man. That's powerful. And I think how you communicated that is so good. You know, I have conversations with men all the time, and they'll say things like, because a lot of these guys are high performers, career-driven guys, whatever, hard workers, and they'll say, you know, my kid comes in at like 7 o'clock, and they're just like, they interrupt me, right? And I say, I'm trying to work. I'm a bit busy at work. Well, don't come into the office.
Yeah.
To which I usually say, listen, man, they are the work. Right? Like maybe, but however, it's important to understand, yes, work is important. You have to work. You got to stay up late sometimes. You got to grind it out. It's the grateful grind, you know, we're talking about before we hit record, right? But then also, that's also work. And so this, what you just articulated is this beautiful way of saying, hey, I'm gonna talk to you in a moment, but let me explain to you why I can't talk just right now, because Daddy, I mean, part of what I do is to provide for you, and because I want to love you, I want to take care of your needs, and this is what it looks like. And sometimes I got to stay up late, and sometimes I can't hang out, but I'll come and see you in like 10 minutes or, you know, whatever. But this is why. It's because I love you, right? Yeah. And helping them understand, okay, work isn't more important than me. Work is something that he's doing so that because I'm so important. right? It's because he loves me. And so that is such a beautiful nuance that I think so many guys could learn how to communicate through. I think it's powerful, man. So thank you for saying that.
Well, everyone out there, you're welcome to steal it, please. I haven't copyrighted it yet, so it's all yours.
Last thing, and perhaps the most important question of these 2 episodes together. Dude, tell us all about the Capables. Tell us all about the books. Tell us all about where we can buy them, how we can support you, how we can get behind what you're doing, and how we can find you on the internet. And take as much time as you want.
I appreciate that. We'll buckle up. No, so, the Capables, we've kind of, touched on it here and there. When we found out that Emerson was going to be born with an upper limb difference, like the very next day, the title The Capables popped into my head. Yeah. And I had no idea what it was going to grow into and become. And in the beginning, I thought, well, if I can just write and print one copy of one book that Emmy and I can read together where she could see herself as the hero in the story, then that will have been a win. And then life happens and a pandemic happens and you launch a Kickstarter campaign and all of a sudden hundreds of people from around the world find you and they say yes. And then it changes dramatically and it starts growing into something bigger than I could have ever imagined in the beginning. And so, in their most basic, form, the Capables are a group of kids superheroes. And they're all living with disabilities and their powers are activated through empowerment. And empowerment can come in many forms, from advocacy in our first book to representation in our second book, Lex Leads the Way. And then in the third book, which we're working on illustrating right now, which is about Max, who's living with Down syndrome. His whole struggle is about internal versus external validation and how important it is for us to be proud of ourselves. First and foremost, which I know is not just something that kids need to hear about, but I think us as parents, especially nowadays, with work and everything where we're being pulled in all these directions, we need that message. And so now I do, school visits where I do this, empowering school assembly experience. It's all about encouraging all kids to embrace what makes them different and to celebrate their differences in others. I provide a safe space for kids and educators and parents even to be curious, to ask questions. I really just want to open up conversation. And, going back to what we shared earlier, is like, I want to change the way that people talk about and look at disabilities. I still get to this day, like I was having lunch with a friend. He goes, he was like, struggles or how, I was like, just say disability, man. It's not a bad word. Yeah. Like it is the most accurate word you can use to describe someone living with a disability. It's not bad. Mm-hmm. So that's my mission, and I have big dreams and big visions as to what this can become. Everyone, when they see our characters, because they just have this very captivating animated look to them, everyone says, when's the animated series coming? And so it's on my vision board. So if there's any, dads out there who are in the animation world who want to, chat about how we could bring that to life, I would love to make that happen. But for now, my focus is, one book at a time, one school visit at a time, empowering as many kids as I can, to just, like I said, embrace what makes them different, celebrate it in others. I truly believe that our differences are what give us our superpowers in life. Mm-hmm. And that's what the focus of our books are. And so as long as people keep reading them, I'm going to keep writing them and selling them. And I have to say, our books are pretty darn good.
I bet.
And, I try to be humble about that, but people recently are just like, you got to start like really just embracing the fact that you have good books and you've won awards and all that sort of stuff. And I've just been careful because I never want to come across as like arrogant or, or anything like that. Like I just want people to read our books. And the beautiful thing about our stories is that I know there's a lot of parents out there who want to have that conversation about disability with their kids or differences, and they just don't know where to start. And they're afraid of saying something wrong. And our books are written in a way, just like we were talking about giving words to people who don't know how to communicate. You read our books to your kids, you're having a conversation about disability. You didn't even have to think about it. Yeah. You just had to read the pages on the book or in the book. So that's it. It's my passion, and I love it. And I'm going to keep shouting our messages from the rooftops as long as people will listen.
Mm-hmm. And where can we find it?
You can find us online. We're at The Capables on all the social media platforms. We're also at The Capables, not at The Capables, just thecapables.com is where you can find us. You can order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you want a signed copy, the only way to do that is through our website, which is thecapables.com. Yeah, you can, follow me, at Danny Jordan, or, follow The Capables. That's where I post all the content all the time. And, if you've got a school where you want to bring me in, I'm actually starting to travel more. I'm going to the Ozarks in July, which is really, really exciting.
Fun.
And yeah, I've had, organizations out in like the UK who've reached out to us and, want me to bring our stories out there. So there's really nowhere I won't go to share this message. So if your wife's on the PTA or you serve on the PTA, we need more dudes on the PTA, fellas. So let's get more active in that. If you're looking to bring in an experience like this to your school, library, community center, shoot me an email and let's make it happen.
Yeah, I love it. And, I just encourage you, Danny, you say, reading our books and our books are good and all that stuff. And that's the action behind it. And that's great. But people, when they get your book, they're not just reading a book. Like you are equipping parents across the world, man. You're changing how generations see disabilities. You are equipping like children, empowering children to be more confident. Like, dude, the mission you have is enormous and it's beautiful. So it's so much bigger than just reading a book, like you said, right?
It is. And honestly, it wasn't until I got into the schools that I really saw that. Mm-hmm. Because our first book came out, during the pandemic, like it was over a year before I actually got to read my first book to a group of kids. Yeah. And I'll never forget, I was at this huge school and there was like 700 kids in their NPR and I was in the middle of reading the book. And at one point I looked up and like, I kid you not, like all 700 pairs of eyes were just locked on our book on the screen. I was like, oh my gosh, they like this. Yeah. They're into this. We are impacting kids in a positive way. And it's like, yes, this was started for my daughter who's living with a disability. But what I've learned and really sort of grown to embrace is that my message is universal. Mm-hmm. I think the reason we have bullies in the world is because somebody, when they were a kid, somebody walked up to them and made fun of them or pointed out that thing that was different about them that they didn't like or they were insecure about. And so then they start looking for all the things that they can point out in every other person that's different or they don't like about themselves to make them feel better. And so my message is the exact opposite of what kids are hearing from other kids, parents, coach, whatever it might be. I'm telling them that like that thing that you're worried about is actually so freaking cool. Mm-hmm. And nobody in the history of the world has ever had it or will ever have it. Yeah. Embrace it, man. And like, and you will do incredible things through it. And our world needs that. Our world needs you the way that you are uniquely made. And that you just see this shift happen for kids. And it's like, it's really hard to change adult minds, but like, if you can plant that seed with kids, I just get so excited for the world that we can live in when these kids become adults and they grew up with that notion that like different is awesome and let's just embrace it.
Come on. I love it. Yeah. I love it. Well, I'm going to have the links to everything you said in the show notes below, to the website, to the book, to the Instagram, to your Instagram. Listen, and you guys tuning into this episode, go buy a book. All right. Read it to your kids, whether they have a disability or not, right? Equip your children, equip yourself. Let's have the conversation. If you have people in your life that have children with disabilities, bless them by buying a book for them. All right. Or if money's tight, send them this episode at least. All right. So that they can feel seen, that they can feel heard, that they can feel empowered and encouraged on this journey. Because if you haven't heard by now, it is a wild road of joy and perseverance and frustration and pain and celebration, and it's a lot, right? Yeah. And so think about, as you're listening right now, wherever you are, whether you're driving, whether you're working out, whether you're vacuuming the floor, I want you to pause and think about that person in your life that that would benefit by either hearing this episode or getting one of those books. And I know right now, as I'm saying that, there's a name that's coming to your mind. So listen, my ask of you is that you take action on whatever name just came to your mind. Get the book, send the podcast episode, and let's change this world for the better. So listen, with that, Danny, thank you so much, man. This has just been such a powerful conversation, man. We've laughed, we've cried. This has been awesome. So thank you for being on the Dad Nation podcast.
Of course, man. I've enjoyed every moment, and I'm so grateful that you're providing a platform. As I always say, it's because of individuals like you that invite me to be a part of these, that I'm not just some guy sitting in his garage writing words on a screen hoping that people listen, and as you said, like, if there is anyone out there who's looking for a community, I'm happy to be a resource for you. If you're scared, if you're just you just need someone to talk to, I say this on every time I do an interview or an appearance. It's like, my DMs are always open. I never want anyone in the world to feel like they're alone and they don't have somebody they can talk to. So just know that that's available to you should you want it and need it.
Love it. Thank you for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. Listen, if today's conversation challenged you, if it encouraged you or helped you level up in any area of your life, would you do me a favor? Take 60 seconds to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us reach more men who need to hear this message. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Dad Nation YouTube channel, where you're going to find full episodes, clips, and exclusive content designed to help you win at home just like you do at work. Remember, your family does not need perfection. They need your presence. Your leadership matters. So keep showing up, keep leveling up, and never forget, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. We'll see you next time.